All right, so it's my extreme pleasure to introduce a good friend, Mike Raupp, Professor Mike Raupp. He's a professor emeritus now and extension specialist at the University of Maryland. Mike is a fellow of the Entomological Society of America. He's received national and international awards for writing, scholarship, and science communication. He's appeared on all major television networks in this country. Made Jay Leno eat a cicada. He did that on his own, actually. And several abroad, and has been featured on National Geographic, the Science Channel, the BBC, and PBS. As an aside, Mike and I worked together many, many times when I was doing PR for the University of Maryland, and I can tell you from personal experience that he rocks. Mike's presentation is How to Be an Accomplice to Murder, Mayhem, and Magic, Biodiversity to Aid and Abet Natural Enemies, Pollinators, and Recyclers in Your Landscape. Mike.
Mike, do you want me to pull up the slides now or wait?
No, you can pull them up. It's great. Thanks so much. Well, David, what a wonderful introduction. You know, none of this is really true. I just say this and people invite me to tell bug stories, and it's been working for 40 years, and apparently still works still. So, pleasure to be here. It's been a while since I've talked to the master gardeners out here in Montgomery County, but always a pleasure. This is going to be terribly formal today. Not. So, if I say something totally outlandish, you can say, Mike, come on, right? Okay, right. So please, I'll entertain questions as I go along. We don't have to hold them to the end. And with that, let's go ahead and dim the lights. Okay, so how to be an accomplice to murder, mayhem, and magic. Now, you know, I thought about the murder and mayhem. Maybe this isn't exactly the right time to be talking about murder and mayhem. So I added the magic in there because there will be some magic here as well. So bear with me. Now, I'm going to start talking a little bit about natural enemies. Can anybody tell me what a natural enemy is? It sounds bad. But is it bad? No. They're good, right? Yeah. Natural enemies, basically, we use this term to talk about predators, parasites, and pathogens. A key component of what I call Mother Nature's hit squad that helps reduce pest populations in our gardens and landscapes. Natural enemies. Natural enemies of the pest, that is. So, why are they beneficial? Well, as master gardeners, I think you're often confronted with a public that sometimes doesn't understand insects, might be frightened of insects. So when I speak to master gardeners and master naturalists, and frankly most groups I talk to, I talk about the important roles that insects play in helping make this world go around by delivering what we call ecosystem services. Now, can anybody tell me what an ecosystem service is? And as I tell my freshman non-majors bio class of 200 hormone-laden 18 and 19, when I ask rhetorical questions, the answers are sometimes found behind me on the board. Very good. Okay. Again, these are basically things that the organisms we share this planet with help to make our lives a little bit easier. I think pollination is something that almost everyone understands, and this is basically an easy hook for helping to explain why bugs are good. Number two, the fact that many of these insects will provide the second ecosystem service, which we call biological control. In other words, putting a beat down on the pests in our landscapes and gardens. And number three, They perform a critical linking of what we call food webs and food chains. Remember, the plant world is connected to all those levels up above, including us, through organisms like insects. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we move along today. But let's start with pollination. $200 billion each year. Okay, that's here in the United States. I think worldwide, it's something north of 600 billion, that's old data, it's probably $100 billion annually of ecosystem services provided by our pollinators. The way I like to think about, and I think perhaps an easier way to think about this, is every third bite of food you take is brought to you by a pollinator. And the premier pollinators are indeed the insects. Now, I'm going to take you on a little trip in time. We're going to go back, how about we go back 3.9 billion years? Is that okay? Life begins on planet Earth in the great primordial seas, maybe on the shore of land, maybe in a thermal vent. There are no plants at this point in time, but life has begun. Unicellular organisms are here. So let's fast forward to a mere 600 million years ago. Now, in those primordial seas that I showed you just a moment ago, there are organisms that live there. They're called Carophysians. The Carophysians have figured out the magic of taking the energy from sunlight and putting it into a chemical bond. They are plants. But imagine there's a Carophysian that's by the shore of dry land and it says, oh my, if I could just get up out of this soup, this could all be mine. A territorial imperative. So somewhere about 550 million years ago, land is now colonized by the plants we know as the bryophytes. Who are the bryophytes? And gang, listen, I know you're all a little bashful here today. That's okay. There's no penalty for a wrong answer here today except humiliation among your peers. Now, as a professor, I do this on a daily basis, okay? And I'll try to do my best to humiliate myself today as well. The bryophytes, our friends the bryophytes. And where do we find bryophytes? Swamps. What's the key here?
Water.
Water, why? That's a pretty good answer. I like that. They don't have a vascular system. Okay, now it's time for a pop quiz. Yeah. Who can tell me the equation for photosynthesis? What's on the left-hand side? What are your reactants? Well, light powers it, right? That's the energy source.
Carbon dioxide.
Thank you. Carbon dioxide and water yield.
Oxygen.
Oxygen. That's why you're all going to go home and hug a plant today. And sugar. And from sugar, everything else is built. Okay, very good. If you don't have a vascular system, you better be wet, because you've got to absorb your water for photosynthesis through your epidermis. That's why water is going to be the key with our bryophytes, right? Good. Now, the next big breakthrough came in the evolution of a vascular system. And the plants that did this, of course, were our friends, the ferns. Now, we can put our roots down into the ground. We can transfer water up to the green tissues through what element carries water up in a plant? Xylem. Excellent. The magic happens in the canopy. And then the products of photosynthesis are transported throughout the plant through the other tissue, which is the... Great. You guys are doing good. You are indeed master gardeners. This liberates plants. They can now colonize parts of the planet heretofore unavailable, so you hike to the top of Old Rag Mountain or Sugarloaf, there are ferns growing there. Why? They can put their roots in the soil, get the water, do the photosynthesis thing. Now, how do the ferns disperse? How do our friends the ferns disperse? Spores. So under the fronds, you'll find the sori that produce the spores, correct? The next big breakthrough comes in the mode of gamete dispersal. And that is done by our friends, the gymnosperms, right? Who's my Latin scholar today? What does gymnosperm mean? Naked seed. Very good. Very good. Gymnasiums, it's the same root, right? Did you realize that gymnasiums was a place where you got naked and exercised? Hence the name gymnasium. I didn't know that either. My freshmen think gymnosperm means Jim has no sperm, but that's not so either. Okay. So now we've got naked seeds, right? So when you eat your pinoli nut, it's the naked seed of a pine tree. The next big breakthrough comes about 130 million years ago, where we switch from seed to fruit, a fleshy fruit, flowering plants, angiosperms. And what is that fruit for? Reproduction. For what? For birds. Yeah, for birds. Right, it's for dispersal. Very good. You've all heard the old adage that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, right? No. The apple really does want to fall far from the tree because if you fall in the shade of your parent, you're not going to thrive. The apple is hoping some big herbivore comes along, gobbles it up, walks 100 yards away, poops it out, so it gets its own sunlight. And that's why I tell my freshmen, it's time to get out of your parents' basement because you're not going to get your own sunlight living downstairs. So get out of there, right? It's okay if they circle through again, you know, with changes in relationships and jobs. That's okay. Not permanent residence. Okay, so here we are now with the angiosperm world. So when did the first bug come on the scene? Well, the first insect came on the scene right there, about 400 million years ago. And what was the first insect? The cockroach, right? No. What's that look like? Does anybody recognize? The silverfish. Very good. The silverfish, right. Okay. So, and indeed, the silverfish are still with us today, 400 million years later. Okay. Bryophytes, water, vascular system, ferns, and OMG, the Carboniferous, 280 million years ago, something like that. Dragonflies with a 3-foot wingspan. Cockroaches this big. And on the way back to the car, you would have been confronted with an 8.5-foot centipede-like creature that would love you for lunch. Now, insects have very inefficient respiratory systems. We have lungs, they have like a passive ventilation system, a series of ports in their side tracheae. Okay, had insects evolved lungs, I think it would have been like the Starship Troopers on Planet Klandathu, where there are 6-foot-tall arthropods just eating us. Okay, but fortunately for us, oxygen levels decline, insects get smaller, mammals get larger. Okay, so that's the Carboniferous and the ferns. Next up, the gymnosperms, right? Now, on my way over, I was on the Intercounty Connector, and I saw this very interesting gymnosperm. I think it's a type of Oriparia, right? It must be a monkey puzzle or monkey kind of something, right? Yeah. Okay. Now, the challenge, of course, for the gymnosperm is to get the gamete from the male cone to the female cone. And how do they do this? They are wind pollinated. Very good. Now, is the wind fickle or predictable? It is fickle. If you've ever flown a kite or sailed a boat, you know wind is fickle. So how does the gymnosperm get around it? Well, it produces tons of pollen. If you go out right now, you've got a pine tree, you can write your name on your windshield every morning, right? So somewhere along the line, about 135 million years ago, I think there's a gymnosperm that says, look, I'm making all this pollen. It takes a lot of energy. And, you know, if I had a helper in this business of pollination, then I could be more efficient. I could repurpose my nutrients. I could grow faster. I could shade my neighbors, steal their sunshine. So the gymnosperm recruits pollinators, animals that help with that transfer of pollen. And what that does is it leads to the flowering plant world, yes? Okay, master gardeners. How many of you have a gymnosperm in your landscape, in a park nearby, in a nursery that you have to inspect plants for? How many of you have a gymnosperm? What kind do you have? Let's name some. Pine, spruce, cedar, cypress, fir, hemlock. What? Yeah, you can have a go to redwood. That's good. Juniper. Yeah. Yew. Very good. Sometimes people bypass that. We got the Minnesequoia already. Chemycypris, sure, you can have a chemycypris. You're doing good. The record's 16, by the way. A cryptomeria, okay. A what? Yeah, you can have a chemycypris, why not? Okay, hinoki.
Japanese umbrella tree.
We got them. We got the junipers. We got the spruce. How about a ginkgo? Yeah, you got a ginkgo. Okay, good. Not bad, Ken. You did. Give yourselves a round of applause. That's pretty lame. You tried that. Okay. All right. So sure. All right. Now, so we did pretty good to get 14 or 15 gymnosperms. Does anybody have an angiosperm in their yard, or their landscape, or the nursery they scout? Yeah, how many? Lot. A gazillion, right. So the question now becomes, why do we have a gazillion angiosperms, but we struggle to get 14 gymnosperms? Why? Why, to me, is the most interesting question in biology and ecology and evolution. And look, it's the why question. Why?
Successful.
Oh, they're successful by definition, and they're more diverse. Color's nice. I like color. Helpers. Okay. Let's try it this way. How many of you have ever grown a sunflower? What kind of master gardeners are you? Yeah, okay. And what pollinated your sunflower? Flies, bees. What else? Ants. Well, I think the birds eat the seeds. Beetles, wasps, all kinds of stuff. And you know those bumblebees? After they visit you, they're going to go visit a crabapple or a trout lily or bluebells. Your pollen's going everywhere. That's not what you want. So what does the sunflower do? The sunflower says, look, I'm going tubular. I'm going to make a corolla so only that insect with a very long tongue can be my pollinator. Now we've got a selective pressure on the part of a bee to have a very long tongue. Plant says, oh, that's cool, but now I'm going to go snap try it. So now that pollinator has to be able to open the petal and access the nectar. Now we've got a selective pressure for a different kind of pollinator. We call this back and forth between flowering plants and their pollinators co-evolution. We think it's one of the primary driving forces we see in the angiosperm world that we don't see in the gymnosperm world. You don't have to be clever to be pollinated by wind. You do have to be clever to be pollinated by an ant, right? Does that make sense? I just made that up. That sounded pretty good. Okay. So now we've got our pollinators, specialized, great diversity in the flowering plant world, but guess what? the greatest diversity in the insect world: beetles, flies, bees and moths and butterflies. The 4 large groups of pollinators. Okay, coevolution. Now,
What about ants?
ants are in the family of bees and wasps. An ant is actually a wasp. You didn't know that, did you? It is a wasp. We just call it an ant. We're confused. Who are the animal pollinators? I call them the 3 Bs. Who are the animal pollinators? The 3 Bs. Bats, birds, and bugs, but of those 3, it's really the bugs. Now, this is a deal. Pollination is a deal, right? It's a deal between the plant and the pollinator. And any good deal has to go both ways. So what does the insect get from this deal?
Calories.
It gets calories, right? Carbohydrates, maybe. And what's the source of those carbohydrates? Nectar. And what else does pollen, and what is pollen? Very good. Pollen, fats and starch, carbohydrates, and amino acids. What does the plant get from the deal?
Reproduction.
Well, it gets the reliable transfer of its gametes, which fundamentally is sex, right? And I think food for sex is a good deal. Okay. So, I want to show you something. I'm going to show you now the comet orchid first discovered by Darwin in Madagascar. That plant has a 13-inch corolla. Darwin says, a nectar tube, right? He says, there must be a creature that's got a very long tongue. Well, Darwin never lived to see the discovery of a hawk moth with a 13-inch proboscis, the sole pollinator of the comet orchid. Proof of concept, I think, of what we've talked about in terms of specialization here, right? Okay. Now, who are the first pollinators? Beetles, you think? Is anybody buying maybe bumblebees, bees? Yeah, like bees? Nope. How about butterflies? No, nobody for that. Okay, how about flies? Yeah, flies good? Nope. It was indeed the beetles. And the beetles were probably in it for the pollen, for the protein. The nectar reward probably came later. These guys were after the pollen. Now, in terms of beetles, let's talk about those guys for a minute, because they're pretty cool. We can often see beetles in flower heads. It's called Cantherophyllae. This guy you'll recognize. This is called the goldenrod longport beetle. You're going to see it in your goldenrods and your asteraceae late in summertime. It's a yellow jacket mimic, right? It's black and yellow. Birds learn not to mess with yellow jackets, so, a warning coloration. The immature stage of that beetle, if you've got Robinia, if you've got a black locust on your property, and you ever notice these holes in the bark of it, big holes, that's the larva of that beetle that bores in that wood. That's where the immature stage lives. So I want now to begin to think about the fact that one life stage of an insect may do one thing, and another life stage of an insect may do another thing. We're fortunate right now, out in our woodwork, out in nature, to have the pretty six-spotted green tiger beetle. You've probably seen that on your trails. Yeah. Here it is eating a caterpillar. That's good. And this is another one of my favorites. This one's called the fiery hunter. It's a calisoma or ground beetle. Now the name is a bit of a misnomer. The immature stage, the larva does indeed stay on the ground, and it's a predator on the earth. The adult stage climbs up into oak trees, and it feasts on cankerworms. caterpillars that are defoliating trees right now. This is part of the reason that, frankly, cankerworms are not outbreaking all the time, is the ground beetles, the fiery hunter and its little brother, another ground beetle, climb up into the canopy of the trees and eat the cankerworms. Okay? Off it goes. Soldier beetles. You've seen these in your garden as well, I think. Again, the adult stage, pollinator. You'll see them on the asters, right, all the time. The female obviously can multitask as she's going up to the blossom to find some food, right? You often see insects in tandem, don't you? Butterflies, dragonflies, and damselflies are famous for this. You'll see them flying together. Why do they do that?
Reproduction.
Well, it's reproduction, yeah, but why does the male just hang around like that all the time? He might be eaten. Yeah, if you're hanging out with the babe, you're not going to get eaten, maybe. I don't know. Depends who the predator is. Any other idea? Territory. Yeah, in a way it is territory. Sorry?
Food source?
What?
He follows the female with the food.
Well, he's just along for the ride there, I think. He can find the food on his own pretty well.
Waiting for her to say yes.
Well, that could be. I like that idea quite a bit. I've not heard that one. But basically, the rule with insects and many other creatures is the last one in wins. It's called sperm precedence. So what he will do is inseminate the female, then guard her to make sure another guy doesn't sneak in. Okay, sperm precedence. Is that pretty good? Yeah, I like that, don't you? Well, to an extent. Okay. Now that's what the adult does. The adult's a pollinator. Got it? How about this? This is what the larva looks like. Well, what is that larva doing? What's that larva doing up in the canopy of the tree? What could it be doing? Eating bugs. You are exactly right. So this is a predator. It will go into the flower heads and eat thrips and aphids and spider mites up in your flower heads. So, to have this second ecosystem service, this service I call biological control, what must you have in your garden? Flowers is the right answer. Because the flowers provide the food resources for the adult insect, which then becomes resident, lays eggs, and the maniacal offspring give you biological control. Okay? If you're having a Super Bowl party, and if you don't have nachos and wings, guess what? The party is not at your house, it's next door. So to have these biological control services, flowering plants, and I believe flowering plants are the key in a residential landscape, in a park, and frankly, in Mother Nature's land for increasing biodiversity. Because now you've completed the full suite of resources needed for creatures to become resident and live there. Okay, let's visit another pollinator we all love, for I sure love these guys. Butterflies. Now, these are the antennae, and the thing that's pulsing very fast back and forth, that guy right there, that's the proboscis. That's the soda straw she's going to insert into the flower to sip the nectar. I want you to watch her and tell me about how long she's in there for. Watch this for another 10 or 15 seconds. And tell me how long does she actually dive in there to sip nectar. Okay. How long? 3 seconds. 3 seconds. Again, Why? Why doesn't she just sit there for 20 minutes and get what she needs?
Because most of it comes down first.
There's what?
There's only so much of it.
There's only so much. Why?
The flower wants it.
Yeah, plants cannot run around or run away, but plants are highly manipulative. That plant is manipulating its pollinator by just putting out dribs and drabs to ensure the maximum transfer of pollen, right? And what you will see if you go and sit in the garden for long periods of time, like I do, you'll see things like this and wonder why. But you'll also see a different array of pollinators that are coming to your garden. First thing in the morning, it's going to be the bumblebees. A little bit later, it'll be the mason bees and leaf cutters. A little bit after that, it'll be the wasps and hornets. A little bit after that, when it's nice and warm, then you're going to see your butterflies. Okay? Claytonia. How many of you guys like Claytonia? Spring beauty. Spring beauties, right? You know, I talked to Santa Brogi about Claytonia. There was this tiny little bee that comes and visits the Claytonia, but it's only there between 10 and 2. Okay? He says, yeah, Mike, he said there may be only 1 or 2 species of solitary bees that pollinate Claytonia. And Claytonia basically is working banker's hours. It's only putting out its nectar between 10 and 2. So plants will utilize different time frames, different fragrances and odors to attract their specialized pollinators. Has anybody here ever had an Easter lily? Did you notice when your Easter lily is most fragrant? It's not in the daytime. It's in the evening and nighttime. Why? Because in nature that is pollinated by bats and night-flying moths. Okay, so it's selecting. They select their pollinators. Okay.
Why is it advantageous for a plant to specialize a pollinator? Wouldn't it be more efficient for plants to work with lots of different pollinators?
Yeah, but that sunflower doesn't like it. The pollen's going everywhere. If the pollinators and the plants are all generalists, then your pollen's going everywhere. If you can become specialized, now you can take advantage of that unique pollinator that's doing the job super efficiently. Right? There's a danger, of course, but evolution is not predictive. Evolution cannot look down the road and understand that extinction may be right around the corner. Okay? Somebody will ask that from time to time. Yeah?
So I noticed on our trumpet vine
Yep.
that different pollinators will go into the same flower.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
Is the flower actually controlling and not giving up all of its benefit, its nectar at once? Or?
It could be. That certainly could be. Some are very generalized, like my friend the sunflower. It's basically going to, all takers are welcome to a sunflower. Your trumpet vine may be the same way, but again, that trumpet vine is going to be selecting for not only insects with long tongues and narrow faces, but of course hummingbirds and things like this, right? Good questions, gang. Okay. So we have some butterflies and moths that are diurnal. Most of the time we think of our moths as nighttime pollinators, don't we? But there are a few, like these beautiful hummingbird moths, some people call them bumblebee moths, that are going to be daytime pollinators as well. Right? Okay. My friend Doug Callaby, bringing nature home, right? It just turns out that Doug and I grew up about 20 miles apart in rural New Jersey. We did our master's degree at Rutgers together, where we studied tiny creatures that live on the salt marshes by Atlantic City. We then came and worked in the same laboratory for our PhDs over at University of Maryland. And I've written books and gotten grants and papers with Doug. So some of this sounds a little bit like a Callaby story. That could be the explanation. Doug and I go back a very, very long way. And you all know that, again, these insects are critically important for the next trophic level up, caterpillars in particular. We'll circle back on this. Now, I want to talk about bees a little bit. I'm going to talk about honeybees. All right, let's first watch how clever the honeybee is. Specialized behaviors and morphology. Okay, what am I going to do? Let's see. How am I going to do that? Oh, got to pull down the petal first. Then I squeeze that thing. The pollen comes out. Yeah, I put it in my pollen basket. We'll get a replay on this. Okay, let's see. What am I going to do? Oh, yeah, I got that petal in here. And I pull the petal down. Yeah, and there's this black thing. I'm going to squeeze it with my jaws, squeeze, squeeze. Oh, there's the pollen. Front leg, mid leg, hind leg, pollen basket, off we go. Specialized behaviors and morphology. Honeybees. Why are bees special with respect to some of the other pollinators I've talked about? Why do I say bees are special? Some of them are generalists. Honeybees, indeed, are generalists. Yeah.
Really good at carrying pollen.
Some of them have special adaptations like pollen baskets on their legs to carry stuff. Let's work it this way. Monarch butterfly. She lays an egg of milkweed, right? The egg hatches, the caterpillar's there. Does mother say, "Oh, darling, please have another bite of milkweed"? No. No, she flies off, finds another guy. All right. Bees, who is the pollen for? Is it for her? It's for the offspring. Yeah, okay, that's why bees are special. What happens if she's a bad mother? Huh? The kids die, right? Yeah, the kids die. So there's been very strong selection for bees to be incredibly efficient in the things they do. Specialized morphology, like hairs and pollen baskets, clever behaviors to access the nectar and pollen. Now, let's talk briefly about the honeybee. I think all of you know the honeybee is not a native bee, right? You all know it was brought over by our colonists. Why do we bring the honeybees here to America? Honey, you think? Yeah, Jefferson and those guys, they really like to read books and write letters at nighttime. The power grid then, that Monticello area stunk back in the 1600s. But they had wax candles to read by. And of course we had honey to eat, which was great. But they also knew that the honeybees would pollinate all the non-native plants, which serve as our food sources. So I kind of find it amusing when people say, I hate a non-native plant. I say, boy, do you look fit for somebody that's been eating pawpaws, persimmons, Jerusalem artichokes, and huckleberries. Please understand that every plant you eat is a non-native plant. Now, if we lived down in Arizona, pumpkins, we could put pumpkins on the list, or teosinte or corn, but for us, no. And we depend on these bees, particularly honeybees, for pollinating a lot of our crops, our fruit crops in particular. Okay. We do have some social bees. The honeybee is a social bee, right, where we have a queen and she lays the eggs, which are all sisters, all her daughters, and they do the heavy lifting. We do have some social bees as well. We have bumblebees, right? Those are social bees with a queen and workers and things like that, too. But the bees, I tell you, if we were to look out that window 1,000 years ago, well, we wouldn't have been there, but we would have seen a world that really was functional. So who was carrying the freight back 1,000 years ago here in Maryland? It was our solitary bees. Ground nesting bees. What she will do is she'll burrow down into the soil that far. She'll create a series of chambers off the sides. She will coat the inside of that burrow with secretions from her glands that waterproof it. These are also called cellophane bees. She will then put pollen in each of the chambers, lay an egg, and her brood will emerge. Now, it took me several years to get my backyard thin enough that I could have a nice colony of ground nesting solitary bees. There will be a day in the next week or two when the male bees will begin to emerge, and it's always the males out first. It's called protandry, right? Why do the males emerge first in the insect world and in much of the other world as well? Well, they could be out to find territory, or what else? Be stronger, yeah, maybe.
They'll get eaten first.
Oh my God, they don't do that. They don't emerge to get eaten first. I mean, that would be very generous, noble on their part to get eaten so the females could live. I love that notion. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to take you back maybe to a little bit more to your youth. When you're going to the club, do you go early or do you go closing time? You go early. Yeah, because if you wait till closing time, it could be desperation. So the males come out first, so they have a much better choice of potential mates. Okay, protandry it's called. All right, so there'll be a week, not long in the future, when I will literally have hundreds, if not thousands, of these bees cruising 1 foot off the ground as the males await the arrival of the female bees. My neighbor has a lawn care company. Oh yeah. They came into her backyard to do their dastardly magic, and they took one look at the bees in my yard right next door, and they said, "We're not coming in today." So my ground nesting solitary bees are my security system in the backyard. I also get phone calls this time of year from guys with names like Tiger, and they'll say, "Oh man, I was out in the 18th hole, and there are all these bees out there. How can I kill them?" I say, "Why would you want to kill those bees? They're native pollinators. Don't do that." "Well, they might sting me." Well, let's think that through. These bees, look at me, I'm holding that thing. It's very docile. Why are those bees docile? Huh? Yeah, they do need to survive. Yeah. It's not like honeybees, right? The queen, when Winnie comes to get the honey and eat the brood, Mom says, go out, you had daughters, go kill that bear. I'm going to lose a few. It's Russian infantry stuff. I'll make more, no worries. If a solitary bee risks death and that happens, what happens to the babies? They die. Okay. So these are very docile bees. I have a picture of my 3-year-old granddaughter holding one and saying, "You love me, little bee." All right, so don't kill those bees in your yard.
They don't sting?
Well, they do sting.
Oh, okay.
I'm glad you asked. Now, I used to be a paper boy, and I have a scale of pain called the Doberman scale. A Doberman's a 10. The Chihuahua, they're feisty, but that's a 2. On the pain scale of stings, this is a 1. Many of you have been stung by what you might call a sweat bee that got caught in the crook of your arm, and and you said, "What happened?" That was the sting. Okay, so they're not painful. They're not designed with that. Question?
How can we propagate or promote these bees in the yard?
Give up on your lawn. Let it go bare. That's what I did. I just let the weeds, and I kill the weeds, and boom, or rogue them out, whatever. Just make a bare lawn. Yeah, if you listen to Sandrogi, he'll talk about the value of creating nesting habitat for these bees. Yeah?
How long do you wait? We were really surprised. We have a very dry area next to the house. And this year, we were flooded with these.
Yeah.
And they're still active,
Yeah.
in and out.
Yeah.
When do you, because I want to plant some stuff in it.
Yeah.
Without disturbing the bees.
No, just go ahead and plant your stuff. They'll be cool. You can go about what you want to do. It's going to be a live and love. But you'll be okay. Bees will be okay. You'll be okay. There'll be enough. Question?
I don't know if I misheard you or not. Did you say that everything we eat is non-native?
The plants we eat are non-native. Unless you're eating a pawpaw, a persimmon, a huckleberry, a Jerusalem artichoke.
Just to
Here in Maryland, non-native to Maryland. Non-native to Maryland. Yeah, Maryland, not the United States. She's moving to America.
who have been here for whatever, for 10,000 years, they did the Three Sisters thing, the corn, the squash.
Southern plants that were transplanted to northern territories. Corn came from Tiosenpe, Mexico. Your squash and pumpkins came from the Andes Mountains, Central America, Mexico. So all these things were moved. Our earliest colonizers here, probably our earliest indigenous people, were nomadic hunters. Granted, I'm teasing you a little bit. There were some grains in the Great Lakes area, wild rices and things that could be eaten. But by and large, here in Maryland, the food we eat, the food you get at Whole Foods, there are non-native things. Good enough? Okay, great. All right, one word. I'm going to skip this one for the sake of time. I'm running a little bit behind. Leaf cutter bees are cool. I want to show you my mason bee colony. I started my mason bee colony several years ago, and I started it with, that bundle of tubes, about 60 of the tubes. Everyone got filled. So the next year, I get 60 more. Everyone gets filled. So I said, heck with this. I'm going to take my old firewood splits and drill them out. Every one of those things gets filled. So I think our mason bees are probably nest site limited. They're called mason bees because they will emerge in the spring. They'll mate vigorously. The females will then go out and collect pollen, make little pollen cakes or pollen balls inside these tubes. At the end, she'll then seal it with mud, hence the name mason bee. So usually beginning the first week of spring, my mason bees will begin to emerge. And because I now have about 1,000 holes out there, and each one of those holes will produce 8 to 10 bees, I will have several thousand bees in my carport. That's what this is. For about a month. And for that month, there will not be one UPS, Amazon, or postal delivery to that door. So, backyard, security, brown nesting bees, front yard, mason bees. Okay? Cool. God bless you. Okay, another one. Yeah, question back?
Some of those bee hotels attract predators and actually are not that helpful for the bees.
Those things? I don't believe that. I don't believe it for 1 second, because the more I put out, the more they get filled. That tells me that these bees are not resource limited. They're not food resource limited. They are nest site limited.
So besides your carport, where do you...
I would put them under a protected location. You want to keep them out of the rain. Make a little. You've seen these little sheds and things that people put up at nature centers. So yeah. Well, yeah. So that's my take on these guys. Okay. And they're awfully good fun to watch. Okay, now, this one, these are halictid bees. Some people call them sweat bees, but I mean, we talked about specialization. Look at those hairs on the hind leg. They look like saddlebags, don't they? And again, these are going to be active from the time the very first brassicas bloom throughout the summer. You're going to find these beautiful halictid bees, sweat bees pollinating your plants. Honeybees? Well, they're on the ropes a little bit right now for a variety of reasons. Number one on the list, of course, is the varroa mite and the viruses that were imported with foreign queens that are now being transmitted. So pathogens are one. A second part of the puzzle for honeybees is the quality of pollen that they eat, the food resources. To grow the almond crop in California, which is a desert, as you know, it takes 1.5 million beehives to pollinate the almond trees in the desert. Now, if you've watched a honeybee, it feeds on everything. These are generalist pollinators. It turns out that almond pollen is not all that nutritious. So again, bad food, maybe I'm not as healthy. Maybe I can't really fight off the virus, okay? Your autumn flowering plants, your herbaceous plants that bloom in autumn. with global warming, are they blooming earlier or later? Earlier. Honeybees depend on nectar sources and pollen sources to provision for winter. So are there more or less late season sources of food for honeybees? Less. So now bees go into winter with lower food reserves than they once had. In addition to this, it stays warmer later. The queen says, oh, it's still summer. I'm going to lay some more eggs. All right, so climate change is another big part of this. And finally, pesticides. We all heard, 20 years ago that neonicotinoid insecticides were responsible for colony collapse. Well, it's part of the puzzle, but it's many different kinds of pesticides as well, herbicides. Now, herbicides aren't acutely toxic to a bee, but the bee still has to process that herbicide when it's exposed. I know with my freshmen in bio, the morning after the Duke game, when they come to class, they're not as sharp. They've been processing lots of exogenous compounds in their body the night before. So bees are the same way, okay? So it's a complex of those factors. Parasites, pathogens, food quality, and finally, pesticides are responsible, to a large extent, for the decline we see in bees.
What's the age, how long do they live?
Who? The bee?
Yeah.
Well, the queen can live for several years, okay, and they will produce, as the colony grows to a very large size, the workers will then produce new queens, which go out and found new colonies, right? The workers simply don't live that long now.
They don't,
No.
Do they live one season or?
Well, sure, they live one season, yeah, for sure. Okay. Wasps get a bad rap as far as I'm concerned, but talking about morphology and pollination, I want you to look at the morphology of one of my favorites, Monarda punctatum, the spotted horseman. Here are your reproductive structures. Your anther and pistil are up here. Down here is where the nectar is. Watch what happens when the great black wasp tries to pollinate or does pollinate this plant. Watch what happens. The anthers and the pistils bend over and put the pollen on the back of the wasp. See, it's got a yellow back. Now that wasp, the adult stage, is a pollinator. It's going to go out and it's going to hunt caterpillars and eat caterpillars to feed its brood. Okay, so now again we've got this dual biological service that these wasps are providing. Flies are important pollinators as well. Now the flies are probably in the game for the nectar, for the carbohydrate source, right? Okay, you've probably seen this fly. This is called a hoverfly. And you can see this mouth part pulsing back and forth. What it's doing is lapping up the nectar. The pollen is transferred incidentally. So if we look closely at the face, you can see the pollen is concentrated on the eyes and the mouth parts and legs. Flies. Now there are some heroes in the fly world. Okay? This one bottom left is called the featherleg fly. It is a tachinid fly. This particular fly is a parasite of what we call the true bugs. Now, those of you who have had your introductory course know that when I'm speaking of the true bug, what group of insects are those? The hemipterans. Very good. Incomplete metamorphosis, sucking mouth parts. So the featherleg fly will hunt a leaf-footed bug or another true bug, and it will lay 3 eggs right behind its head. Now that bug can't get those eggs off. The eggs will then hatch, they'll bore down into the bug and kill it. Yeah. This gets even better. I'm going to take you back to 2005. The brown marmorated stink bugs arrive in Maryland. You've got hundreds of brown marmorated stink bugs coming inside your house. Well, guess what? The feather-leg fly lays eggs on the brown marmorated stink bug. They hatch and kill that thing. Mother Nature's hit squad. It's part of the reason that we don't have as many stink bugs as we did 20 years ago. Okay. I've been talking a lot about biological control. As I said, it depends on our three friends, the predators, parasitoids, and pathogens to help reduce pests. Anybody ever seen spotted lanternfly? Uh-huh. Well, you know, spotted lanternflies, when they first got here, the press loves this stuff. Tell me about it. As with many other insects arriving to the United States from other parts of the world and finding no established natural enemies here, they have become very invasive. Whoa. Wow. Scary. 200 attacks by spiders, 200 attacks by praying mantises, 177 attacks by wasps, and 55 by assassin bugs. 20 families of birds, mammals, amphibians, fish, and other non-feathered reptiles eating spotted lanternflies. Already, I was talking to my arborist out in St. Louis a couple years ago. The guys from Tennessee are saying, oh man, here it comes, right? Here it comes. We're getting ready. We've got to gear up. And I saw my guys from Berks County, up in Pennsylvania, Ground Zero. I said, guys, how's it going with spotted lanternfly up in Berks? They said, what lanternfly? Mother Nature has a way, if we let her. Ready for what's this, what's that? Let's play what's this, what's that? What is that? Praying mantis. Is that the native mantis or the dreaded Chinese mantis? Okay.
How can you tell from the nest? Can you tell from the native?
What's that? That is the egg case of the spotted lanternfly. Well, you know, I had a Chinese mantis out in the front flower bed. So I said, okay, look, I want to find out about you. Come in and have a look at my lanternfly terrarium. She seemed interested. She jumped down, she grabbed one in one arm, she grabbed another one in the second arm. She proceeded to eat the head off the first one while the other one tried to get away. She then dived on the leg of lanternfly before she went for the sweetbreads, did a deep dive into the inside, till all that was left were the wings. Now, they've gotten a bad rap. I heard a story a few years ago that we should go out and kill them, collect their egg masses and kill them. Okay. Because they were competing with our native mantis. There is not one shred of scientific evidence that they are competing with our native mantis. I did an extremely deep dive in the primary literature, not one published shred. Will they eat a Carolina mantis? You bet. Will they eat a hummingbird? You bet. Would they eat you if you were a little smaller? You bet. This is a top carnivore, okay? The Chinese praying mantis was first discovered just outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in the late 1800s. It turns out, just outside of Pennsylvania, there's a nursery called the Meehan Brothers Nursery. They were the first to import Japanese red maple to the United States. I think it came over as an egg mass on a Japanese red maple. Let's fast forward a century, 40 miles away. Berks County, Pennsylvania. Who shows up? Spotted lanternfly. Well, guess what? Chinese praying mantis has known spotted lanternfly from China for 20 million years, right? Loves to eat those things. Same with brown marmorated stink bug. Loves to eat those things, right? So this is a situation, a case where, you know, just like Hannibal Lecter, it's having an old friend over for lunch. Okay. So, incredibly important, highly beneficial.
One question.
Yes?
A we still collecting these guys to eliminate them, or should we just let them be?
Well, God, if you want to collect them, I have 3 nurseries. You can collect all you want, give them to me, and I'll send them to the nursery guys, because the nursery guys know they murder the pests in the nursery.
They have.
Well, you know, Sheryl Crow once said, if it makes you happy, if you feel like you have to kill that thing, go ahead, but there's certainly no reason to do
Let
that.
them be then.
Yeah, just let them be. This is a top carnivore. This is an apex predator of the invertebrate food web in your garden. When I have a praying mantis in my garden, it's like having a mountain lion or an eagle. It tells me all those other trophic levels lower down are intact. It's a highly functional ecosystem when you start having mantises there, because they're a prey. Yeah?
Well, on your last frame, you mentioned non-feathered reptiles.
Yeah.
What are the dinosaurs? I can't think of a feathered reptile.
It's a bird. Birds are now considered reptiles, as they should be. Yeah.
One other thing, Mike, about that lanternfly,
Yep.
I'll tell you, as a beekeeper, it is preventing a lot of robbing, because now we have a new food source for
Right.
bees in the fall.
Right.
Because in the fall, especially on droughty years, everybody's looking for that thing to eat. The flowers are all shut down, and it's hornets and moths
Yep.
against beehives, and everybody's trying to defend what they have.
Right.
And so last year, there was plenty for everybody.
Right. Again, there's even beekeepers have taken advantage of this, and they're actually selling now lanternfly honey. It's got a smoky flavor.
Got more nutrition value apparently.
Right.
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 Studies on the components of it, and
Right.
it's super great for you.
Yeah, so there could be an upside to the lanternfly, I think, is where we're going here. If I didn't have a chance to put up my blog. I don't know if anybody here visits Bug of the Week. All right, well, for those of you who don't, if you want to hear the story that Marie shared with us, you can go to the Bug of the Week website. It's done every week. I've been doing it for 20 years. And you can learn about the honeybees and other late season nectar seekers there. So Bug of the Week, any browser. Okay, well, that was the Chinese mantis. How about the Carolina mantis? I also invited one of them in. I have both in my garden. She was much more demure. She started at the eyeball. As things went, basically, the Chinese mantis, she just ate lanternflies nonstop. This one did eat lanternflies, but not nearly to the extent that the other one did. Okay.
Which ones are more aggressive?
Chinese.
The Chinese ones?
You betcha.
So do we encourage them to breed, or what should we do with them?
I think just let them be. The question here is, what should we do? How can we encourage them? I think just create a biodiverse landscape and they'll show up, and then just let them be. As I said, this is an apex predator in your food web. A couple more things. Where is Steve? Is he still here?
Yeah.
Steve, what time do you want to let folks go?
It's up to you, Mike.
Oh, no. How are you guys holding up? We've had some nice discussion. You good for a little while longer?
Yes.
All right, I'll tell you some more bug stories. Ladybird beetles, when they're not eating meat, they're eating nectar and pollen. Okay? Now that ladybird beetle, this is the Asian multicolored ladybird beetle. This is the one that comes in your house. Yeah, it's invasive, no question. It was imported first to control aphids on the pecan crops in Georgia. It has since spread coast to coast, border to border. Okay. That beetle will live 3 years. Every year she lives, she will consume 1,000 aphids, and in so doing, she'll lay 600 eggs. Each of those eggs will hatch into this maniacal predator, which will consume another 1,000 aphids during the course of its lifetime. Now, my question to you is, the 3 years that she lives, how many aphids have we murdered? Understanding in the second year, all 600 have hatched, consumed 1,000, and laid 600 more. What's the answer? A lot is the answer. And somebody said a trillion. I had a mathematician work it out, and it would be a trillion. Obviously, everybody doesn't live, and I'm pulling your leg. It's a 1-to-1 sex ratio, so 600 eggs only means 300 females, right? But the bottom line is they're highly valuable. Now, some of the heroes, as I've mentioned, of the fly world are these ones that mimic stinging insects. To me, that's a honeybee. These sure look like yellow jackets. How can we tell the difference between a bee and a yellow jacket? Wings. Bees belong to an order called Diptera, dive 2. Hymenoptera, the wasps and bees, forewings. That's how we tell them apart. Now, I've made a little silent movie for you. Somebody has to play the piano, but I will narrate. Now, this time of year on our plants, the aphids are all over the place. And they're parthenogenetic, meaning no guys, it's just grandma, mom, and the granddaughter sitting there sucking sap. They also give live birth, just like we do. That's why populations explode. Now, on your plants, you'll often see this little fly that can fly like a helicopter. It can hover. It's also called a hoverfly, right? What she's doing is tanking up on nectar so she can go out and find colonies, gesundheit, of aphids. There's the egg, here are the aphids. Her larva is blind. It casts back and forth till it finds an aphid. Then it has a mouth hook. It looks like Captain Hook's hook. It goes flap. And do you see this thing that pulses back and forth? That's the other mouth part. And we call that mouth part the pokey thing. It's technical. And it goes pokey, pokey, pokey. And the aphid starts to bleed real good and it sucks up the juice. But you can see the aphid gets stuck on its face. And it doesn't have hands. And you don't want to go out with an aphid on your face. So it kind of wiggles back and forth. Fortunately, the aphid does fall off. But as I watched, I learned that aphids are not clever. Okay. You ask, how can you have this in your garden? Right? How can you have this in your garden? This is being filmed in the parking lot of a Starbucks on Route 1. If that can happen in the parking lot of a Starbucks on Route 1, it can happen in your garden. Okay? But what must you have for the adult flower fly? Thank you. Anybody know this one? These are some of my faves. The beautiful green lacewing and the brown lacewing, its cousin, what are they doing? What are they resting on? Flowers. What do you think they are? Pollinators. That's what the larvae are. The larvae, these maniacal predators. Here's what the larva does. It's going to sneak up on an aphid. It's got hollow jaws. It's going to grab the aphid with its hollow jaws. It's going to pump in proteolytic enzymes that pre-digest the hard tissues inside the aphid, the solid tissues, and make them liquid. Then it's going to turn on a little hydraulic pump in its head, and it's going to suck out the juice of the aphid through its jaws. And after a little while, 90 seconds, the aphid has sort of a deflated feeling about it. Oh, you almost feel bad for them. Okay. Now, this is what the chrysalis looks like. A little globe attached with some silk on the bottom of a leaf. From that issues the beautiful adult green lacewing. And if you see these little eggs on stalks on your plants, those are the eggs of the lacewing that cavalry has arrived. Let them be. Okay. There are other allies here, little tiny wasps, and they also need nectar and pollen. See how small that wasp is? I'm going to run another video here, and maybe I'll add some sound to this one. If I can figure out the sound button. Oops. No, we're not. Okay. Oh, you know what? I'm not hooked up to the audio here. That's fine. Okay. Well, the aphids we see here, we have plump, juicy aphids, and we have funky brown aphids that are called aphid mummies. There are little tiny wasps called reconded wasps that will hunt these aphids. She's doing a little grooming before she goes out on an aphid hunt. She'll then move into the colony of aphids, and the trick here is to get her egg inside that aphid. If you watch, she's actually curling her abdomen between her front legs in an attempt to sting that aphid. You can see the aphid is in a battle for its life, okay? But I think there's a sting that's coming up here right about now that works. Now, if we look at this, again, on a side view, you can see how clever she is with her abdomen. Okay? And as I said, for the aphid, this is life and death. For the wasp, if she can't sting this one, she'll simply find another. So again, when we have our plants in the garden, the first thing I look for are the predators I've talked about, and then I look for these tiny parasitic wasps. I look for the mummies. In this field of view, we might have 50 aphids. And of those 50, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mummies, 10%. I'm going to wait a week. And if 10% has become 40%, the ball game is over. Okay? If we look closely, some of these aphids have a trap door in their rear end. See it? Is that cool? Would you like to have a trap door in your rear end? Well, that'd be cool. You could jump out and be Martha Stewart, maybe. I don't know. But anyway, if we take the picture at just the right time, we can see the tiny wasp emerging. It's going to go into that aphid colony and basically kill those aphids. All right, I'm going to skip through some of this. I want to talk about this one, and then we'll put a wrap on this and if you have questions. Let's meet what I call scary potters. These are little black and yellow wasps that you'll see in late autumn. Now, maybe in your landscape, or on the side of your house, or maybe on your car, you've seen this funny little pot. Sometimes they're messy, this little clay pot. If we look inside that clay pot, what we'll find is 4 caterpillars and a wasp larva. What the potter wasp does, she'll feed on nectar and pollen, and then she'll go out on a caterpillar hunt. She'll find a caterpillar, she'll sting it and paralyze it. They will be the undead. She will then take the caterpillar, stuff them into that pot, lay an egg, and seal the pot so other creatures can't get in. The egg then hatches, it drops down, and begins to feed on the paralyzed caterpillars. They're still alive, it's fresh meat. Now, can you imagine being a caterpillar in there, you're paralyzed, and you look over and you say, oh, geez, next. But again, they reduce our pest populations. I want to run this video for you. Here's another potter wasp. Here's her pot. And if you look right here, you can see her carrying a paralyzed caterpillar. That's what that is. Watch what she does with that caterpillar.
How do you get these pictures?
How do I get the pictures? It's dumb luck. It's just dumb luck. I spend an awful lot of time out in nature. All right, see the caterpillar disappearing in that hole?
She's pushing him in.
Now, somebody asked me, why is there a price tag there? I'm shooting this in the middle of a Bornean rainforest. There was a vendor there in the middle of nowhere on the river selling tchotchkes. And I was looking at her table, I said, man, that's a potter wasp. And I just hung around until the potter wasp came back and stuck the caterpillar in the hole. So sometimes you got to take advantage of what you got, right? All right, gang, you've all been good. I'm going to flash ahead here. We've had good discussion. I do always enjoy that. I promise there will be another time, perhaps sometime in the future, that we will be able to have maybe a reboot here, and I can talk a little bit more about these 5 things that we can do to enhance sustainability. In my opinion, the first thing we have to do is increase biodiversity, and it has to happen at all levels. At a genetic level, whenever possible, if we can get plant material that has reproduced sexually, we preserve the genetic diversity, which is Mother Nature's hedge in an uncertain world. Everybody look at the person next to you. Go ahead, it will be painful. Now look on the other side.
I'm not native.
That's okay. Diversity is good. Now, how many of you saw yourselves? Excepting the narcissists, how many saw yourselves? This is Mother Nature's hedge. You are Mother Nature's hedge. So are plants. So are animals. Somebody in this room is resistant to COVID. Maybe 5 of you. And this is Mother Nature's bet. That when catastrophic things happen, there are going to be some who will be able to withstand this challenge. All right? That's why to me genetic diversity is key. Species diversity. Dutch elm disease. We built our cities of elm trees. We imported a pathogen, a vector. We lost 40 million American elm trees. So what did we do? We replanted with ash trees and maple trees. Then we imported emerald ash borer and Asian longhorn beetle. When are we going to learn the lesson? To make our cities resilient, we must have a much broader palette of plants, right? So, again, this will be the work of urban foresters, and if any of you sit on boards that make decisions, please, no more maple trees for a little while. We got enough, okay? We got enough. Use native plants. You've heard Doug talk about this. Native plants are what our animals, our insects evolved with. That's what they know. Okay, so native plants are key. Use native plants whenever possible to increase this ecosystem service. This is never on the radar, never. But what we really need is we need legislation. We need help from agencies that are going to basically help reduce the threats of importing these things, right? I mean, think about emerald ash borer. Think about spotted lanternflies. They all came with container ships. These could have been nipped in the bud if we had intercepted them before they got here, correct? We also need tools to help us diagnose and rapidly assess these threats and deal with them. Okay?
The other countries getting eye bugs also?
You bet. Yeah, fall webworm. You all know that bug that will appear in June through September, makes the big tents on, oh gosh, many different kinds of trees. Big tents on the ends of branches. That's fall webworm. That is the #1 forest pest in China right now.
Oh, yeah.
We sent sycamore lacebug to France during the First World War. So on the Champs, all those sycamore trees have American sycamore lacebugs. So yeah, it's tit for tat. It's a global economy translates into a global biota. That's a different talk, but not for today. Mitigate climate change. This is the big gorilla gang. If we can't get this right globally, it's going to be a serious problem. If we keep going the way we're going right now, by 2050, I think it might be 2050, Maryland will be Georgia, Maine will be Maryland. And there will be places on this planet by the end of this century where the average daily temperature will be 130 degrees Fahrenheit. Arizona is getting close, okay? And I guarantee you, when that happens, there will be no wall big enough to prevent a migration of tens of millions of people to a place where they can live. Okay, so We all have little parts we can do. It's not going to be solved, but there are all things we can do. Every one of us. Places on the moon, yeah, that's a good fix. Yeah, that's a good fix on the moon. Where that can live, yeah, okay. I'm kidding, of course, maybe, but that's not the quick fix we need, guys. We need a fix quick. Finally, the equation for photosynthesis, H2O plus CO2. The built environment. Concrete, impervious surface, there is no H2O. That is the number one enemy of plants in the built environment is impervious surface. More green space, more green roofs, more parks, and if possible, make a pervious driveway, make a pervious sidewalk so water can infiltrate and we can grow plants. Finally, and again, more green spaces with connectivity, apply soil amendments, nutrients, growth regulators, and pesticides on a prescription basis rather than on a broad scale basis. So you've got a bed of 30 azaleas, and the two over here have azalea lice bug. Treat those two. Do not treat 30. Because they're beneficial insects. The reason the other 28 don't have bugs is because there are predators there. And people say, well, there might be bugs there. Well, there might be bugs on the moon. But I'm not treating the moon. I'm going to treat the plants. Same thing with your fertilizers. Be careful. Low nitrogen, slow release, organically based fertilizers as well. And again, when you've got to go, all right, if you've got to pull the trigger, look for this. OMRI. Use insecticides that are listed by the Organic Material Review Institute. When you buy your broccoli at Whole Foods, don't believe that it wasn't treated with an insecticide if it says organic. If it had aphids, they treat it with an OMRI listed insecticide to guarantee that it would be organic. Okay, so always look for that little OMRI label on the pesticides that you apply when you have to apply them. Let me see if I can.
Labeling all the pesticides by now?
No, not everybody's going to clear the hurdle.
Yeah.
Most things are not going to clear the OMRI hurdle. Okay, so that's the little label you want to look for when you're using your insecticides. I found 146 products listed for home use. So it's not like there's not stuff there. Okay. OMRI listed.
So if we go on OMRI website, we'll be able to find that?
Yeah, or you can just go to your home and garden store and look for the OMRI label before you buy it. So with that, we had good discussion, I think. I took a little longer, perhaps, telling stories than I might have. But I hope you learned something, perhaps, and maybe enjoyed something. That's equally good, right? Biology should not be boring. And we'll catch up on some of these other topics, perhaps at another time in one of your advanced classes. So with that, thanks so much. Enjoy your gardening. And let's save the pollinators. Let's save the world, okay? We can do it. We can save this earth.